Your time has finally come, my squirrel enthusiasts. No longer pushed aside for the love of other furry creatures, we finally have a game that is all about these beloved little tiny nut fanatics. Welcome back to Drnkie Indie, everyone. I'm Drnkie, and this is our weekly indie review by or skip. Our goal here on Buy or Skip is that by the end of this video, you'll have my opinion on enough information to know if you should buy or skip any given game. If you enjoyed this review and you find it helpful while you're watching, let us know down in the comment section below. And if you're new here to Drnkie Indie, don't forget to hit the subscription button and become part of our community. Alright, this is Nuts, and here is my review. Nuts is a single-player surveillance mystery where you're following the tracks and the clues of squirrels inside of Melmorth Forest. This game was developed by the development ensemble of Jute, Pool, Moose, Char, and Torfy. I hope I'm saying all those close to correctly. Additionally, it was published by Noodle Cake, which also sounds like a food I never knew I needed in my life, but now I surely do, and that's going to be my post-review homework. Initially, this game was released on the Nintendo Switch in the middle of 2020, but now you can find its recent PC launch on Steam for $19.99. Our first category, as always, story. You begin this interesting tale of squirrel mischief being dropped off in the outskirts of Melmorth Forest. Upon arriving at a trailer, you are soon put to work by the boss on the other end of a phone throughout the game's entire story. The phone will become the main mechanism for how the story is generally told to you, while you also find little notes left behind by the apple-eating and core littlebug Simon that you are going to live and die by the phone on your wall. As you spend more time in this forest, you begin to see strange things occurring between the squirrels and their interactions with a nefarious corporation trying to build on this land, the forest. Now, the story of Nuts is enjoyable, but as it starts asking questions of what the player is actually finding and what it means to the world at large, I feel like the satisfaction of getting the answers to these questions just doesn't give enough. Having the main storyline being told through the phone line makes you kind of feel like a sideliner and a bystander, even though you're the one doing most of the work on the ground. And while the ending does make you feel okay, it really doesn't make me feel great. I felt like all the work I did throughout Nuts just doesn't pay off in the end. Everything I did inside of it just doesn't really feel like it relates to the end. I could have been doing anything and just kind of ended up where I did at the end of this game, if you catch my drift. Next up, graphics. One of the most visually interesting games that I think I've played in some time, Nuts has a style all to its own. Vibrant and punching, this game contains nothing but simple yet huge color palettes that are absolutely stunning. I've done quite a bit of graphic design work in my life, and as a lover of colors, this game is just an absolute delight to be in. I'm not sure you can make a game that really illustrates just how well color can be used to direct a player and what they need to do, but also be so pleasing that does it better than Nuts does. This thing's a masterpiece in that regard. I can't stop staring at the videos and the screenshots of this game. It's just, everything about it is stunning. And there's not a lot to talk about this game graphically. There's not too much that I can say. Like, what you see is what you get, and it's over the top great. It really just speaks for itself. Alright, on to the squirrels. Let's talk gameplay. Nuts has in it one of the most novel concepts I've played in the game in a long time. If you were to ask me to place it inside of a genre, I'm not entirely sure I would know what the answer would be. In the beginning of this review, we talked about how this game is a bit of a surveillance mystery, and that does fit, but what does that actually mean? The core mechanics of Nuts involves your use of a camera, its placement, and then analyzing what you recorded on the camera during the night. As you place a camera on a designated rock or a tree that you're going to be watching, it will capture a squirrel entering the scene. Once you review this footage at night, you see where the squirrel is moving to, and then you adjust your camera, and later on you get about 3 cameras, and then you further track the squirrel's movements throughout the night until a goal, say finding his stash of nuts or secret hideaway, is achieved. Once you get that basic idea of what the gameplay is, it does feel like it could be simple, but in its design, it starts to get progressively more difficult as the squirrels begin to go in and out of tight spaces and up and across trees, and your night footage becomes a little bit more difficult to find the squirrels and track them. Additionally, the developers create some really creative takes on how you need to track these squirrels to mix up the gameplay throughout the entirety of Nuts, so nothing ever really feels stale. I really enjoyed the gameplay of this game. And although I have played games in the past that had me place down a camera to watch it, say Phasmophobia, Nuts' combination of this technique with the squirrel tracking and having you kind of solve a mystery, it was not only enjoyable, but it really did feel fresh. On to sound. The sound design of this game was actually surprisingly good, and no offense to the indie developer community as a whole, but a lot of the times the sounds in these unique feeling games can be a little bit rough from a couple of different angles. This is not the case with Nuts. From the sounds of the phone ringing, you're running around in the forest, and the clicks and the scanning of all the analog devices that you're using, it's all just really fantastic. Speaking of analog devices, I really forgot just how enjoyable all of them used to be just to use because of the sound effects they would give off to you in real life. I don't want to expose myself here as a elder millennial, but we are. But I was really nostalgic to hear these sounds again, and hats off to the sound dev for capturing all these sounds just right. Soundtrack wise, Nuts is really pleasant to listen to. The soundtrack really never takes too much attention away from the game. You, for the most part, are just listening to the forest and your movements throughout it. The soundtrack really isn't even there, but there are times, especially nearing the end of the game, where the soundtrack really takes off and it's excellent. Just kind of had me bopping. I was vibing. All around, the sound lives up to the graphics and its excellence, and I really did love it. Finally, replayability. I was recently listening to a developer talk about replayability. He was mentioning the idea that we all get so hung up on replayability of a game when we're reviewing them or covering them in gaming news, when in fact the majority of people aren't even finishing games. This thought has been in my head for a while now, and it was definitely there while I was playing through Nuts. And for a game that is this short, I think you could make an argument that a game like this should be a little bit more replayable than it actually ends up being. While everything in this game is really good to go through for the first time you play it, the second time you go through this game, you could absolutely just blast through this game in no time at all. It's all the puzzles are exactly the same, how they play out, you'll get the beats really fast. I'm not sure if I'm giving too much weight to replayability in games when we talk about them on this channel, and I'm not sure if we're going to continue on this category in future reviews. I guess I'll let you know on that front. But as it stands, this is a category at the moment, and Nuts just isn't very replayable at all. I wish there was a little bit more randomization of where the squirrels came from, just a little bit more maybe procedural generation, whatever it is. I'm not a developer. Having the puzzles be the exact same really limits Nuts in its scope of what it can be. This is the game you play. It's a very short puzzle-based game that's very solvable. And that's it. And I wish I could get more because I want to go back and play this game. I want to live inside of these colors more. I want to live around the sound design a little bit more. And I just kind of feel like I can't. It's a bit of a disappointment there for me. Buy or skip, Nuts. I'm really on the fence about where Nuts is for me on recommending the game. It's an absolutely brilliant game graphically. Its gameplay is unique and the sound is great, as I've talked about. But the lack of a fulfilling story, or even one that surprised me in the least, really holds this game back for me. If you have seen all of this review and this game looks great to you, then I don't think you'll regret making the purchase. But for me, the lack of story and its replayability lands Nuts a skip. Alright everyone, that is going to do it for our review of Nuts this week. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you make a decision on whether or not you should pick up Nuts or not. It's a really cool looking game. If you're new here to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the Drnkie Indie channel so you can come back for more videos, and leave a comment below what you thought about Nuts or our review of Nuts. Alright, that's going to do it. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Bye everybody. Bye.